like sometimes the people in the law library really don't have any idea how to fill out or notarize a power of attorney, but they're supposed to, they need to sign their name and then print their name below it. So I've had to start over and get a whole new one because they didn't print their name below it. Amazing, if that
Right.
makes sense. Sorry about that.
No, that is great news. But if you email me at tifa@tifa.org, it's on there. So there's the signature and then there's the printed name. So
Okay.
if you, yeah. So, but that is really, truly great news because, I mean, great information, Jeff, because people don't know that. So just do it right. So you'll only have to do it once. And I don't mind sending y'all a template for it. And again, Jeff is over the Austin chapter. You can find him on the TIFA website if you need any specific information on how to do that, because he was very successful at it. That was great news. I appreciate that. Okay.
Great, well, thank you. So we are going to spend some time talking about the Earned Time Credit Bill. Again, we already have a question. How to get the Earned Time Credit be approved this coming year, or any law for the first-time offenders for aggravated cases? Great question already. Thanks for asking. That's what we are all working on, is how to get the people approved and being able to utilize the Earned Time Credit Bill. So thank you. So Isabel and myself, and we have another speaker who's going to be joining us to talk about the Earned Time Credit Bill. And Isabel, do you want to start?
Yeah, I was thinking we should start with introductions, but maybe we should wait for Ernst, or?
Nah.
Okay. Well, my name is Isabel. I have been working on the Facebook page that has been sort of in charge on, sharing information about what the Earned Time Credit Bill is and educating people. I just graduated from college. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I also have an incarcerated loved one in the state of Texas, which is why I'm so passionate about getting this bill to pass. And, it's not only for him, but for the thousands of other people who would benefit from having this amazing bill passing. And, we are doing everything we can to get it to pass in this legislative session. And we're very thankful for everyone who's joined us today.
Yeah. And I'm Susan. My son is incarcerated, and he would also be one that would benefit from the passing of this bill in Texas. Right now, there's 38 states that have passed an Earned Time Credit Bill, so we're working hard at getting it passed in this upcoming session. This will be our third go-round, so we'll count on the third time being a charm. And I've been working with a lot of interns this year that have helped us on getting this bill passed. So we're going to give you a short presentation of some slides that we've created. And we also have a guest speaker with us, Ernest Fenelon, who was just here and then he just disappeared. Technological challenges. I'm sure he'll be back. So he's going to be speaking with us as well.
Okay. I am going to share with you guys our presentation. And there we go. Just to give you guys some information on what this bill is all about. I believe, what do you get? Okay, there we go.
So the Earned Time Credit Bill. This bill authorizes earned time credits toward parole eligibility. And that word eligibility is really important part of this sentence. For all persons incarcerated by the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and the acronym for that is TDCJ. Earned time credits would be granted based on participation in the following programs: education, vocation, rehabilitation, and agriculture or work. And the reason why I point out the word eligibility is a lot of people don't really know what that part means as it relates to this bill. And I think it is one of the most crucial parts of the bill that we are educating people on. When this bill gets passed, it doesn't mean that people will automatically get out, which I think is a concern of many and a rightful concern of many. What it does mean is that folks who currently now have sentences with aggravated charges will be eligible for parole at an earlier date. Right now, they are eligible after serving 50% of their sentence, and we are wanting to get their eligibility moved up so that they could be eligible sooner. So it doesn't mean that they would get out. It means that they would have an opportunity, some hope, something to look forward to, and work through the process like everybody else. And it's all the same rules and regulations and assessments and matrices that the parole board utilizes.
So why is this bill important? And I think this bill is important in so many ways, and I tried to summarize it as best as I could. And first of all, it would allow more people in prison to earn parole eligibility. But like Susan said, release is not guaranteed for anyone. Parole board will still have its discretions the same way as it's had, for all these years. It will provide an incentive to participate in productive activities, as well as hope in an otherwise hopeless situation. If we encourage people to participate in rehabilitative work and to, go to work and engage in educational programs, and we give them something to look forward to, as these time credits, we are sort of promoting this engagement. And it is so important to have these people do something very important while they are in prison. And it's also creating safer environments for inmates, correctional officers, and other TDCJ staff throughout the facilities. If people get parole eligibility and they, do make it out, we're talking about reducing the overcrowding of prisons, which is, an issue many facilities currently deal with. And not to mention the aspect of how now overcrowded prisons are hotspots for coronavirus. And we want our loved ones to be healthy, and we want correctional officers to also be healthy. So that would be crucial for that. And also provide the parole board with more ways to evaluate individuals in TDCJ while maintaining their discretion. If they engage in educative and rehabilitative programs, then the parole board will see, how important it is for them to get better and to do something with their lives, and come out as, improved human beings, and, use their time in prison to work on themselves.
So this bill doesn't shorten sentences, but it provides more opportunities for some of the sentence time to be served in the community. People granted release would then be able to provide support for their families, pay taxes, etc. So people still, if you're given a 40-year sentence, you still have that 40-year sentence. As it stands now, you wouldn't be eligible for parole if it's an aggravated sentence until you serve 50% of that time, which is 20 years. So you would still be serving the last 20 years on parole in the community. And what this bill would do is make you eligible to apply for parole at an earlier time.
Another very important aspect of why this bill is very important is because this year, TDCJ announced a budget cut. In May of 2020, due to the COVID pandemic, the TDCJ department was directed to submit a plan outlining a 5% reduction to their current fiscal year budget. And, 5% sounds like a small number, but when we look at it, the budget cut totaled a reduction of $122.9 million to current agency operations. And we're talking about a challenge that is coming, for our loved ones who are on the inside. And with this bill and with reducing the amount of people that are in prison, we're talking about also alleviating this burden of having less money, but still the same amount or more people in prison, that we need this budget. We need the budget for food, and we need the budget for securities and for staffing. So I think it's very important for us to keep in mind that while this bill is helping us and our loved ones, it is also going to be helpful for TDCJ and how they handle their budget and all the money that goes into prisons. And I think it's always important for us to keep that in mind when we are talking to our legislators, especially because the majority might not know what is happening in TDCJ right now. And when we bring this to their attention, they can have even more points to draw on when making their decision to support this bill. And finances are very important, and we shouldn't overlook this aspect.
And the need for budget cuts, that makes this a great time for a bill like this to happen. Between the need to cut the budget and the coronavirus, I think that the prison system is looking for ways to save money and reduce the number of people in prison. And so this is a relatively easy way to do this. And the passing of this bill in itself isn't a bill that would cost any money. I know there's a lot of bills that are coming up in this session that would cost money to implement. This is a process that already exists. It would just be extended to another category of inmates. So, it really does make it a great time for something like this to happen.
Definitely does. I agree.
So how would the ETC, the Earned Time Credit Bill, help reduce TDCJ's expenses? Prisons cost Texas taxpayers $60.31 per inmate per day, amounting to $22,012 per year. That was a statistic from 2015, so we can only anticipate that number is higher now. Parole supervision, on the other hand, only costs $4.39 per person per day. That was a statistic that we got from 2019. So there's a great discrepancy in terms of cost to taxpayers in Texas as to how this would benefit people.
Definitely. And we have all this information available on our Facebook page. If you ever are looking for pointers to discuss with other people that are unsure of supporting this bill, or with legislators, we encourage you all to write people and use all this information that we have up on Facebook. And that if you have any other questions, please feel free to message us or email us. I believe Susan will be typing our email address in the chat box and also our Facebook page, because having a communication with our legislators is so important, and we are trying to make all this information available to you guys as best as we can. So this is what we have right now for the presentation.
So our email address, if you want to contact us, is advocates and the number 4 etc@gmail.com. For those of you that are just listening, it's advocates the number 4 etc@gmail.com. And then we also have a Facebook page. It's one of Tifa's many Facebook pages. So it's Tifa at Advocates for etc.
Mm-hmm.
So you can contact us either of those ways if you're interested in finding out more about this bill. And
Yeah.
we're delighted to have with us today Ernst Fenelon Jr., who we have met and spoken with and presented with before. He is from California and an author and a speaker and a coach, and has a great story to tell. And we're excited that you're joining us today, Ernst. Thank you.
Awesome. Can you hear me right now?
And
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, first of all, I want to thank you to Tifa, as well as you, Susan, personally, for inviting me for this very important conversation. I think it's a really critical conversation. Is my mic just unmuted? Let me see. Okay, no, I'm good. Okay, so yeah, you see the little guy in the background. Had to make some quick changes. My computer, literally, as I was logging on, it suddenly said critically low battery and just died. It just cut off and didn't come back. So, you know, you have to stay resourceful and creative, and I have a tablet, so I was able to switch to that. But first of all, thank you for inviting me for this very important conversation. I look forward to engaging with the audience, and I truly think it's important. One of the things you said just recently, speaking to the people who are not sure to support the bill, I want to definitely speak to them on several levels. Again, my name is Ernst Fenelon Jr. I was formerly incarcerated for 14 and a half years, 3 years parole, 17 and a half years in the system. That was 15 years ago when I got out. Since then, I've been engaged and involved in the criminal justice reform arena in a holistic approach. I want to look at it from the inside, the outside, where it begins from. How can we dismantle the situation that we're faced with today, wherever we are in the nation? We're at a critical tipping point right now when it comes to the issue of mass incarceration. And that's what we're talking about. We're not just talking about incarceration. We're talking about mass incarceration. We're talking about over 70 million people who have a criminal justice involvement, directly having a record that has prevented them from employment, housing, and has created a stigma for over 70+ million people. On top of that, you have the families that support those individuals. And so when you add that number in, we're talking about potentially over hundreds of millions of people who will be directly impacted by what we talk about, not only here in Texas, but around the nation as well. And so I think it's very important to begin to get the scope of what we want to get a handle on. The key subject that comes in is this idea of disenfranchisement. If these individuals who have criminal records are not given a legitimate second chance, given an opportunity for employment, given an opportunity for housing, then we're going to have a situation where we'll have people who will feel they have no resources. And that's not what we want. We want to engage with people on a level of humility and forgiveness that understands that people can change. That's the first step. We have to believe that people can change. All of us, I think no one here can claim that they haven't made a mistake, made bad decisions, made bad choices, harmed somebody in some way, maybe not physically, but we can harm people mentally, emotionally, financially, in many ways. So we want to come from a perspective of, okay, how was I able to recover from that? What opportunities was I given, and how can I create opportunities for others? So that's important to speak on. And what's important here is that when I say I did 14 and a half years, that was in California, where I was under the sentence of an earned time credit that allowed me to take a 28-year sentence and therefore cut it literally in half. By doing the activities of going to school, of not getting into disciplinary issues, of being able to function and focus on what is important. And so I think that's a critical incentive, because the reason why people are going to prison are many, but ultimately, in many cases, is making poor choices, bad decisions, being associated with individuals who may have encouraged them or encouraged them into behavior that broke the law. And so we want people to be able to go to prison and be able to shift their thinking, shift their behavior, because prison is really a reflection of behavior. That's what it boils down to. If they don't do certain behaviors, or they're not encouraging certain behaviors, or they're not feeling that that's the only choice they have, then they're going to choose other behaviors. And so this is why it's shown that with education, the higher up somebody goes on the education ladder, from AA, BA, MA, all the way up to PhD, their chance of recidivism, which is what most people want to measure, do they go back to prison, is very low, right? By the time you get up to PhD levels, their percent of going back is less than 1%, right? I believe it's like 0.03%. So obviously we want to create educational opportunities for people, because when you have less education, you cannot see opportunities in front of you to get better opportunities to better your life and better your associations. So again, going back into my particular case, having been able to have an earned time credit was an incredible incentive for me to stay focused, to stay out of discipline, to continue. I wanted to do the work, right? I wanted to go to the counseling sessions and learn better coping mechanisms, learn better behavior patterns, learn where did my negative behavior patterns come from, as well as increase my education. The fact that I was able to then cut my sentence was an incentive for me. So I say that because individuals in there, in many cases, they're given many choices. They're given choices to do positive things or negative things. It's kind of like a hospital when you think about it. Right? If you want to stay well, you don't go to a hospital, because who's in the hospital? All the people who are sick, right? So this idea of, if you want to shift behavior, you have to create environments where people are given incentive to shift their behavior. It's kind of like school when we think about it. Like, I homeschool my son, and I know many of you out there are homeschooling right now, but I made a choice to homeschool him. But if he wasn't homeschooled, he would be required to go to school, because we as a society believe it's better for him to have the incentive to increase his education. If he doesn't go to school, there's gonna be a knock on my door asking me, hey, where is he at, right? So as a society, we hold our children accountable for going to school. We give them incentive, get good grades, you go on to the next grade. If you really get great grades, then you have great opportunities to go to great colleges, great jobs, so on and so forth. So sometimes we have to give incentive to individuals to do better. And so with this credit, this earned time credit, it gives individuals an opportunity, because the most important resource we have, whether you're incarcerated or not, is time. And for those of us who have been incarcerated, we can either use our time productively, because we're not distracted with all the things that life tends to distract us with. But when we're given that extra incentive, it allows us to focus in a level that's unprecedented. Just to give you an example, when you look at college, those who are incarcerated, when they're dealing at the college level, they tend to perform better than non-incarcerated college students, because they're less distracted. You've seen, if you've watched the news articles, you'll see that you have debate teams, incarcerated debate teams, who have outperformed Ivy League school debate teams, because they have been able to focus in on their performance and thrive. And this is the key thing I want to tell you, is many people, the majority of people who are incarcerated, they want an opportunity to thrive. And so before then, they may not have thought that option. But now when we give them this option, they're looking to raise their standard. People want, the American dream is to be able to raise your standard. But if you feel you have no options to get into the next level of playing field, then you sometimes may settle for less, right? And so the key thing that comes in is the key thing that comes in is this idea that we're giving them incentive to focus. And so I say again, 14 and a half years. It was a long time, but when I got out, you know, two things I'll say. For those who feel that, hey, I should have did the whole 28 years, which would have meant I was incarcerated in 1991, and that would have meant I would have gotten out about a year or two ago. So the key comes in is that I don't think, and no one can show me that anyone who would think that I got out early or who I got out less than my full sentence. And like Susan said, the rest of my sentence, the other 14 years, was still on while I was still out. It was still held over my head that if I engage in severe behavior, it will be used against me as well, right? So, right now, Jeremiah, thank you. So the key thing that comes in is that as they get incentive, for those who understand it, then when I got out, the question is, what did I do with the last 15 years? As you see, I have an incredible high-achieving son who's 7 going on 15. And I've been married for 13 years. I've been engaged in the field of criminal justice reform in a holistic approach for the last almost 13 years. And so during that time, I've continued to be employed. I learned law while I was inside. So when I got out, I was able to work with law firms. When I got out, I was able to continue to volunteer with organizations that help the community. I've traveled internationally and spoken on an international level in different prisons as well to encourage and be that example for those individuals to say, hey, there's something better. Stay focused and get focused on what's important. Get out here because we need your talents. We need your resources. And we need you to behave as well. And so these are the things that I've been able to do. I've written a book. I've continued to do things. I've been consulted as an expert on several levels of different things regarding the issues of criminal justice. And so I've paid taxes. I've created a business. I continue to be a productive member of society. And so in that time that I got out, I was able to contribute to society by bringing my talents and my gifts and to encourage people, whether they're incarcerated or not, to do better, be better. And so the blessing for the community is I got out, I've been able to do this. Right now, as a matter of fact, my mom, you know, who was there for me the entire time I was incarcerated and the entire time I've been out, the 15 years I've been out, unfortunately, this year she broke her leg on September 28th. But I'm here to take care of her. She does not, the society, the community doesn't have to worry about it because I have her. I'm here to provide her that assistance and not be able to return the favor. I can never return the favor of all she's given me, but I'm here to assist in that particular arena and advocate for her as well. So all of those things, I'm just giving you a personal example of that. And lastly, I'm going to speak from this point because I want to make sure we engage in a conversation. I don't only speak as a person who is current or formerly incarcerated. I speak as a person who's also a crime victim. My sister in 2015 was murdered, and she was in a very abusive relationship, and she was murdered. And obviously, that was a very painful, distressful situation. I chose to go through the system. And the end goal, and when you talk to most people, particularly people who've expressed or been crime victims of violence, they're only given one choice: go through the system and try to get as long as of a sentence as you can. But if you really talk to them, they're looking for more than that. They're looking for accountability. They're looking for responsibility. They're looking for understanding. They're looking for something. Either you're going to have justice or you're going to have revenge. So for me, obviously, one of my goals was, as I went through the system, was I asked questions. I said, what's going to happen with him? I'm not concerned with just warehousing him. That doesn't serve the community. Are we going to create an opportunity for him to address his issues? Because I do not believe a human being becomes this type of abusive person who causes a person to lose their life by accident. Things happen to him and he has to be given a very clear directive to change the opportunities that are in front of him. And so when they told me there really wasn't anything there, I said, well, what's the point? He's been incarcerated before. All we're doing is just warehousing, and when he gets out, he has more of a record. He's going to have less opportunity. He's going to be older. What have we done better? We're just creating a delay in the next victim, as far as I'm concerned. If we don't give him opportunity and incentive to improve himself, we're going to get the same result. And so I speak from that voice as well. I don't just speak from, like I say, from formerly incarcerated. I speak as a crime victim. I want earned time credit. I want those who are inside to be given incentive, to be given creative outlets, to tap into whatever gifts and talents they have to come out as a productive member of society. I want them to be able to get employment, because when they get employment, they're able to stabilize. I want them to have housing, because housing is a critical component of reentry. Also for mental health. Some of them will be suffering from mental health issues. In LA, I'll say this and I'll cut it off for a second. In LA, they've discovered that if they'll spend far less money if they house the homeless and mentally ill and start from housing and then bring the resources to them and give them a structure, than to try to treat them while they're outside. It's about a 10 times different ratio. In other words, where they might spend about $5,000 while they house them, they'll spend over 50 or more thousand. In California, to house an adult individual in the prison, it's over 70,000, between 50 and 70,000 a year. What are we getting as a return of our investment of a community for that? We're just warehousing individuals, and just like in life, you don't get better by just sitting around. You don't, either you're growing or you're dying. And so we want to give that incentive. And then for juveniles is over 200,000 a year, right? For them to be incarcerated. So in California, are we getting a proper return for our investment in the prison industry complex? And it's been a resounding no. So the more we've created programs, the recidivism rate has gone down. The lower the population, the more that we've seen recidivism go down. And right now with the coronavirus going rampant, so many people can benefit from getting out, being with their families, contributing to society. And I get it, some won't. But that's just like any part of society. Everyone who starts college doesn't finish. Everyone who starts a job doesn't stay forever. We can't use that as our resounding factor that somebody is going to step out of line. We have to look at the majority of people who want to contribute to society, want to be a part of it. So I will stop there and take a breath and want to hear from the rest.
Thank you so much, Ernst. That was fabulous. And a good friend of mine just sent me a podcast yesterday that I listened to, and it was of inmates in California who were doing a rendition of Hamlet inside. And you just made me think of that when you were talking about people's ability to focus and concentrate in prison compared to those on the outside. And also what struck me about what you were talking about was the importance of accountability and understanding, and the terms justice or revenge, and not just warehousing people. That seems like a really important point that you bring up there. And I know I've heard you say before about, for some people, no matter any length of time wouldn't be long enough. And about 30 years ago, I'm dating myself, though, I did restorative justice mediation with adolescents. So instead of them getting tossed into the system, we brought in the victims and brought them in and worked with them and their victims. And I'm sure that they had a very different life than had they just gotten thrown into the system.
Yeah. Actually, in Baltimore, there's a great program. In the elementary schools, they started doing what they called mediation circles. Rather than when there was an incident, they didn't go with a zero tolerance policy of detention, suspension, and expulsion. They began to do meditation at the beginning of the school day, and they began, when there was an issue, do mediation circles. And what they found was disciplinary issues within that environment dropped over 70%. 70%. right? If we learn to talk to each other, if we could create environments where the person who's harmed and the person who created harm are able to communicate on that human level, it's amazing what we can see and what can happen. And I think, you know, like I say, I know Michelle Alexander wrote an excellent article on reckoning with violence. And I think our society has for too long chosen, you know, severe punishment has the only solution. And I say, let's take a look and see if there's another way that can give us what we really want, which is a holistic society, right? A society that can heal. In Rwanda, where they had the genocide, you had one tribe killing another tribe. Over 1 million people were killed. What they chose to do was that those who were incarcerated from the tribe that was killing, they decided to, when they got released, they were housed with the families they harmed. And that created, you know, it's not perfect, but that was one step they chose to heal their community, which is a powerful step. I don't know we can do that here, but at least we need to begin to look at what do we really want from our criminal justice system.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a really powerful and effective way to work with this. And I know we've talked about a lot of reasons why the Earned Time Credit Bill makes a lot of sense from a lot of different perspectives. Do you feel, having lived it and breathed it, that there is anything negative about the passing of this bill that could be seen by anyone?
Well, as I said, either you're going to have justice or you're going to have revenge. Revenge is a plate served cold that's never filling. And so this idea that for those who are going to be like, oh, we're letting out these people early, we're letting out these people, again, like I say, the rest of my sentence was hanging over my head. So as you pointed out, they get out and they're told, okay, do something else. The rest of your sentence will be served to you. We're giving you an opportunity to be at the lowest level of custody in the community and be able to function, right? And I think that's the first step. I think that for the community, you know, again, we're not going to have 100% ratio, although we can. We have a program here called the Project Rebound, and Project Rebound has had a 0% recidivism rate. And Project Rebound is a program.
Oh, can everybody mute, please? Thank you. Gary? Thanks.
Okay, so Project Rebound has a 0% recidivism rate, and what they are is they are a program for people who want to go to higher education and who are formerly incarcerated. And so Project Rebound has a 0%. I work with a program called the Reintegration Academy. We have a 15% recidivism rate at this point. So that means 85% have been successful. So I want to encourage people to look at other opportunities that might create what we really want. We want most people who go to prison to come out, be part, because most people are going to get out. As a society, we're not like some of those other countries where if you commit a crime, you lose body parts or you get executed as a general rule. We have decided as a society that if you know, certain crimes, you're going to go to prison for a while and you're going to get out. The majority of people are going to get out. How do we want them to get out? How do we want them to be a part of our society? And I think that's the bigger question. They will be our neighbors, whether we know it or not. In a lot of cases, you won't know the person next to you has a record unless they tell you or somehow it comes up. But we want to begin to create opportunities for people to feel enfranchised, you know, to feel part of the community. We don't have to, you know, I'm not saying, you know, just go easy. I'm saying hold standards for them. And I promise you, the majority of people want you to hold a standard for them, not a ridiculous standard, not a standard of stigma and shunning them. They want to be held to a standard. Okay, hey, we're going to, you know, you got to pay your rent. You got to do your job. You got to do this, right? They want that. And so if anybody's feeling like I said, again, the only reason that people I could see is the idea that we're being too soft on them. And again, this idea of punishment and revenge, we may want to shift how we think, because the result is proving that we're not doing well. We have the highest incarceration rate in the world, more than any other country. We're incarcerating and the crime rate is not significantly changing. So that can't be the solution, especially after the last 30 or 40 or 50 years of all the statistics that we can look at and see.
Thank you, Ernst. We do have a few testimonies that we want to read to everybody from people who are currently incarcerated. And this first one does dovetail on what you were just saying about opportunities that people can have while they're on the inside. So I'm just going to read one for you, and Isabel's going to read a few, and then we're going to open up to a Q&A. So this one says, I truly hope you can see that I'm not exaggerating when I say that this bill would change lives. But it doesn't just mean people are going to have a second chance or get out sooner. It doesn't just mean that loved ones will be reunited sooner. It also affects the quality of life for us inside. For example, an inmate is not allowed to pursue any formal education beyond GED or vocational trade until they are within 10 years of a projected release date, which means I couldn't go to college even if I wanted to which I do. Furthermore, people with aggravated sentences a lot of the time are very restricted in other areas, such as housing and employment. They cannot live in a dormitory-style housing location as opposed to a two-man cell, and they cannot work jobs that are overseen by free world employees or in places like warehouses that have tools and loading, unloading docks for free world trucks. So they're pretty much stuck being a janitor for the rest of their life. Doesn't that seem backwards to you? The Earned Time Credit Bill changes all of this. You have the power to change the world. You have my eternal gratitude for your efforts and consideration. I cannot express to you how humbled I am to know that someone out there cares. And so that's what you were talking about, is things are really different, it sounds, on the inside when this bill exists and you have it as incentive and something to look forward to. And since most people do get out, how do we want them to get out?
Yeah, and something that Ernst was saying about chances. I have a testimony. My loved one wrote it, and I think it is so important for us to acknowledge that everyone deserves a second chance. I'm going to go ahead and read it. He says, life is a one-time only precious gift, and anyone who has had experience with our justice system, both those incarcerated and their loved ones on the outside, knows that any little bit of change in the right direction makes a big difference. Before even graduating high school, I was faced with a terrible situation that I did not know how to handle, and I made a mistake I will never make again. This was my first time in trouble. I got excellent grades in school. I was part of a relatively successful music band, and he says we have 2 albums on iTunes. I had my whole life ahead of me. And now, because of my aggravated sentence, I have to be in prison for 15 plus years before I'm given the possibility of a chance that is not guaranteed. It would be easy for a person in my shoes to give up hope. The light at the end of the tunnel is so far away. Why pay for schooling? Why try and stay out of trouble? Why bother? This is a very sad but very real effect the system has on good people that have aggravated sentences. And this is why the Earned Time Credit Bill is so important. It brings the light at the end of the tunnel much closer. It instills a new sense of hope. With the Earned Time Credit Bill passed, I would be provided with tremendous motivation and inspiration, because I know I would have the chance to get out of prison while I'm still young, and would have the time to get a job and get on my feet and begin building the foundation for the family and the life that I envision, the family and the life that every human being on this earth has the right to. And he says, I thank you for your time, and I sincerely hope you use it wisely because you'll never get it back. And as anyone who has an incarcerated loved one, time is a very important topic. And I think that using it wisely while you are incarcerated and giving these people the opportunity to work on themselves and really engage in rehabilitative behaviors and programs in prison is ideal. We want them to have this time to work on themselves. I think everyone gets a very distinct perception of time once you deal with someone who is incarcerated. When you spend all this time confined, it feels like it would drag for a very long time. So we want to give them opportunities, and we want to give them chances. That's all this bill is about giving second chances to people.
And hope, and some incentive, and some compassion,
Exactly.
which everybody deserves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and second chances. So I think we're going to read 2 more testimonies, and then I see there's a number of questions in the chat that we'll get to, and then we'll open it up to any questions that anybody on Zoom has. So I have another testimony, and this one has to do with the law of parties, which is when somebody gets charged with something who may not have had anything to do with the event, but they become criminally responsible for the actions of others. And so this man said, I've been incarcerated for 17 years. I'm currently serving a life sentence, which is 60 years according to the state of Texas. I've never committed a crime in my life. I'm convicted of a heinous felony thanks to the law of parties, which basically says that anyone who is with someone during their execution of a crime is also guilty of that same crime. All those years ago, I had no idea what my friend was going to do. I have a 16-year-old son I've never met. According to my timesheet, I've served 235% of my entire sentence, 235%. But because my sentence is aggravated, none of these things, my work efforts, my clean disciplinary record, are taken into consideration by the parole board or any matter at all. If the earned time credit bill had passed back then, I would have had my chance of freedom a decade ago.
Yeah. So I will be reading now my other testimony. I've been asked to share my thoughts on the push for certain reforms in the Texas prison system. What would it mean to be allowed to use even a bit of the 20+ years of good time and work time that I've accrued? It's simple, really. I'd like to be able to live my life again, a life of my own choosing. If I were to serve my entire sentence, I walk free at the age of 53. Even if I were to earn my first parole, I'd be 33. Most 33-year-old men have finished school, started families, and progressed far along their chosen career path. I don't even know how to drive. Any American legal scholar will assure you our justice system is founded on enlightened humanist principles. They will tell you the eye for an eye logic has no place in our courtroom. Further, I was not given a life sentence, yet in many ways, it seems as if I have been made to forfeit my life. It seems as if by taking a life, I have been made to lose my own. To me, the proposed reforms represent a chance to show everyone that I am not a hopeless killer, a chance to prove the lessons I've learned in prison and the changes I've made in myself make me ready to rejoin society, and a chance to demonstrate I am not the same boy I was back then. Everyone likes to talk about second chances, and anyone who makes a mistake would like to get one. So I'd like to have mine. Is that really such a terrible request?
Thank you, Isabel.
Yes.
There's a couple questions here in the chat that I'm going to go over. One person is asking about how can we retroact the House Bill 1279 that was already passed in 2018. This bill that is referencing the earned time credit bill, and it hasn't passed yet. This is the third time that this bill is coming up, and I think that it's a excellent time to make something like this happen for the reasons that we mentioned and due to the budget cuts and the coronavirus. So that bill has
Hey,
not.
let me buzz in.
Sure.
House Bill 1279 was about actually the jury instruction
Oh.
bill. Yeah. So that's what that was. And you can't retroactive a bill for a trial that's already happened because it was a charge to the juries. So that's what that was. So,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, I was getting the numbers right.
Okay. I know, I forget them too.
1271. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And another question, thank you, Sharon. Will the earned time credit cover all currently incarcerated individuals, or will it only cover those incarcerated 2021 and beyond? So some of that, my understanding, would depend on how it's written. But our goal right now is for it to cover most people. But again, it's going to be on how the bill is written. Sharon, is there anything you want to add to that?
Just that we are submitting it without any charges being removed from it. It's a very, very hard bill. This is our third session that we've tried to get it passed. And last session, they did want to remove certain crimes from it, but we didn't want to change the wording of the bill to take out certain crimes, so we kept it in there. We're trying to find an author to find it that understands more of what we are asking, because if you're not familiar with the criminal justice system, it's hard to explain to someone who doesn't know what we're asking, because we get the pushback, we're not going to let all those criminals, violent offenses out, but it's not like that. And that's why we need, everyone's help we have to educate. That's a part of our mission. Educate. I was given the name by one of the Ledge bill writers of 3 more people that are very compassionate and willing to listen, that we will get our team to try to author the bill, because I think this bill to get it passed, we have to have somebody who's going to understand it. So that's about all I can add to that.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me speak on that for real quick, and I'd like to add in, I know that in California, there's been some movement regarding different things at different times. There was a time where we didn't have the earned time credit, and obviously that came into place. So we have a history with that. We also have a history with bills coming in and affecting people who are currently incarcerated. For example, recently regarding the whole issue of the marijuana issue as to the different charges and things, it's going to be very important how it's written. And so I would like to offer the opportunity to, I know several people who are far more superior than me in the legal language of the criminal justice system, that I would love to see how can we collaborate and put something together where it can be impactful, because there's a couple of components of this. One of the components is reducing the prison population. What is the ultimate objective of the sentencing? What is the ultimate objective of the earned time credit? And so we have to look at all of that in a holistic view and craft the wording so it fits, that it can apply. That in California, there was a time where people who were sentenced to life, we had a governor who said the only way that they would leave is in a pine box. The board was, the governor would not sign any. However, after certain legislation and the courts getting involved, where people had hit their matrix of being eligible for parole, and change in governorship as well, they began to have their hand forced. In California, we went into receivership because at one point our population was so high that the courts had to take it over. And so we have to really look at it from a holistic approach. And that's why the population had to be reduced, was because the courts took it over and said, you're violating the 8th Amendment, right? Cruel and unusual punishment. We have to look at it from that perspective. We have to look at it from the perspective of what are we really trying to do here? And of course, the pushback is always going to be, well, we're letting people out. No, we're reevaluating how we let people out. We're engaging on how they come out to be better, productive citizens of society. That's what the conversation is. Fear drives, words are things. Words can either be used to heal or to harm. And in this case, fear can drive decisions. And so we have to address the fears legitimately and say, yes, people who've done things that have violent cases or aggravated cases will get out. But we want them to get out in a way that's going to be a productive member of society. We don't want them just to age out and get out as senior citizens with the hope that they're so old they can't do anything. That's not productive for society. That doesn't send the message of what we really want to do, which is create a holistic, healed society that moves forward. So if you guys need any help, I think I know several people who would love to engage in this battle and address the issues and address the concerns.
Absolutely,
Thank
we
you.
want help.
Yes.
Definitely. And before we end, we just have 5 minutes left. I want to hold up Ernst's book, give him a plug for this. It's called 3 Things That Everybody Wants to Know About You, the 5-Step Plan for Life Success. I'm going to hold it up so that people on Zoom and on Facebook Live can take a look at this. If anybody looking for a great Christmas present, wants to support Ernst more, this is his book out. And
if you have somebody who's incarcerated, you want to get them a great book to read. As you said, working on yourself, this book will be a voice from one of their own that tells them, here goes some of the things I've learned, here goes what's going to be beneficial to you, how to work on yourself. Because it's an art, it's a science, and I've been blessed. And I'm glad to share. It's on Amazon. You can reach out to me directly as well if you want an autograph. But anyway, it's out there for you. And any way that I can help support this movement, I'm here for it.
Thank you, Ernst. And I just wanted to read a couple more comments from the chat. One person said, our president-elect pushed for this law to be changed in 1994. Now he said he wants to make a wrong right. This bill needs to be retroactive, especially for the inmates that have reformed their lives. And someone else asked about how can they be involved and wanting to be a better advocate. We have a lot of Facebook pages related with TIFA, the Texas Inmate Families Association, or you can go to our Facebook page, Advocates for the Earned Time Credit Bill. Sharon does a lot of great trainings and workshops and groups. We have a whole advocacy team that we work with, and our goal now is mainly to educate people, our representatives, get the word out about what the Earned Time Credit Bill is, why it's important, and work towards getting it passed. And the most important thing right now is educating. There's 150 representatives that need to know not only the name of the bill, but what it is and why we want them to vote yes for it, to getting it passed. So we are always looking for help and advocates, especially those of you that have been incarcerated. Anybody and everybody is welcome on this. And
we
Isabel,
have on, oh,
Ernst,
go ahead.
anything else you want to add?
And
Well,
we do have,
oh, go ahead, Isabel.
I just wanted to say really quick that if you are interested in writing to your representatives, we do have on our Facebook page an email template for you to write, and write to them and explain why the bill is important to you. And I also want to thank the 7,000 people who have signed our petition for the earned time credit bill. Every voice counts, and that's an amazing number. So I'm very thankful for everyone who's, passed the link along and that shared it. And, let's keep having those signatures.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I work with the Prison Education Project. We're an organization that goes into prisons and provides educational opportunities to enhance their experience while they're in there. And, our motto is education is liberation. And the education we talk about is from fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of all the hype that gets put into this conversation, right? And so, we want to look back as being the community that made a difference. And so I want to just encourage everybody who's out there, continue the great work you're doing, continue to support. And this is where you make the difference. See, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so for those of you who are able to step in and just be able to care enough to see the bigger picture of what we're talking about, for not only us, but for my son's generation and generations that come after that, this is how we make a change. This is how we make a difference. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I just typed in the chat the name of your book. Again, it's 3 Things That Everybody Wants to Know About You, the 5-Step Plan for Life Success. And it's Ernst Fenelon Jr. You can just check the chat. And thank you, Isabel and Ernst, and thank you, Sharon, for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And keep your ears out. There's an article we wrote on the TIFA newsletter. Check out the Facebook pages, look in your newspapers, and get involved. And thank you so much. And we'll pass the baton to the next speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all so very, very much. And we appreciate all the work that you've put into this bill. And besides those 7,000 online signatures, I have a whole box of people who signed the petition that haven't been entered. So they don't have email addresses, so they can't be entered. So we have a massive amount of signatures, and I'm super, super excited to get this ball rolling and get this bill in there, get a hearing. But we'll keep y'all updated on all that. And thank y'all again so much. I appreciate y'all. All right, our next group that's going to come is a group of guys that were